Ladies and gentlemen, it's back. The world's toughest continental club competition, Africa's premier club competition, the CAF Champions League returns this weekend with match day 1 of the group stage. We know the 16 teams that will be contesting for African club football's top prize, and they come from all parts and corners of the continent, and all of them have unique stories to tell, and all of them will be motivated to bring home Mama Africa and to be crowned champions of Africa. But who are these 16 teams? Where do they come from? What is it about them? And with the groups not being confirmed, I will now have the unenviable task of predicting how all 4 groups will pan out. Hi, I'm the Football Otaku, and welcome to my video. And in this video, I will have the unenviable and difficult task of predicting all 4 groups of the CAF Champions League group stage, who I think I will be previewing all 16 teams, where they stand in their domestic leagues, what is the good or bad about them, and then I will be predicting where all 4 teams or all 4 groups will look come the end of the group stage. If you guys, of course, are loving the content, don't forget to like, to share, and subscribe. You know, it kind of really helps with pushing this video out there for more and more people to see, and for more and more to learn about African football, especially our Champions League, which, again, is the toughest club continental competition on the planet, and is a joy to watch. But enough of me pushing propaganda. Let's get to work. Let's get to the Champions League group stage, starting with Group A, which contains Pyramids FC, RS Berkane, Rivers United of Nigeria, and Power Dynamos of Zambia. Where else can we start but with the defending champions? It's been a pretty interesting summer for Pyramids, and for much as many have felt they've gone weaker, they've actually gotten stronger over the off season. Many would have felt that they would have been gutted and culled, but they've kept a lot of their top stars. Well, the one top star left, Ibrahim Adal, has gone off to Saudi, but they've most importantly kept their coach Juric, and most importantly have kept the now newly crowned CAF Club Competition Player of the Year, Fiston Mayele, and he's been in absolute top form. He's really continued where he left off from last season. I mean, he scored a hat-trick in the Intercontinental Cup quarterfinal against Al Ahly, in Saudi, and has been bang on form in the Egyptian Premier League, and even scored the winning goal in the CAF Super Cup. He's someone who's very, very dangerous, and many people and teams would have felt that he would be heading out of Pyramids, especially to a much bigger, much more ambitious project. But the fact that he stayed is a big win for the club, a big win for Pyramids, knowing that their star man, having lost Ibrahim Adal to keep another one of their star players, and knowing that they've kept sort of a lot of the heroes of last season at the round of the club, like of Mohamed Chibi, and of course, as the aforementioned Mayele. Pyramids are going to be a dangerous side. They've started the Egyptian Premier League pretty strong, and they're a side who have still kept a lot of their guys together and are going to be a challenge for anyone else in this group. Finally, we have the long-awaited debut of Le Renaissance Sportif du Berkane. RS Berkane have been one of the rising giants of both Moroccan and African football. After winning the Confederations Cup on multiple occasions, they've never played at CAF Champions League level until this season, and they qualified by winning the Botola Pro for the very first time. Another landmark season for the club, the Orange Boys from the north of Morocco, much famous for its citrus. They, though, have lost an important player in their team. Their captain, who led them to Confederations Cup glory, he's a bit of a stalwart of the club, has sadly left. They haven't really replaced him, which is a bit of an iffy situation, and they've made a pretty decent start to the Botola Pro campaign as defending champions, although they are starting to lag behind Wydad, who've made a strong start, and Raja in the league. But for many of them, they have deep continental experience. They're a team that have a very, very big pedigree, but now they're going to make that massive leap towards CAF Champions League, which is a completely different gravy. And we've seen a lot of teams make that jump from Confederations Cup to Champions League and not really succeed. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see RS Berkane and where they end up. But I feel that they will definitely be excited for this new African adventure and to finally play the best of the best and to face a very, very familiar foe in Pyramids, whom they recently lost the CAF Super Cup to. We finally have a team from Niger in the CAF Champions League group stage. Rivers United are through to the group stage, and with everything going on in Nigerian football at the moment, mostly bad, it's good to see finally some Nigerian representative on the international stage. They haven't started the Nigerian Premier League pretty good. They're in mid-table in a season that's currently 13 games deep. But it's been and they're a team that don't really have a lot going for themselves. They're a team that's very unknown, very unknown. They're very, very much of a mystery, and I feel that X factor could definitely help them. It could definitely be a bit of a surprise that not a lot of teams know who they are. Not a lot of teams will have been very, very would not have done their research or very limited research on Rivers United. So I feel that they'll be able to spark a massive surprise in the group stage, but they'll have to improve that domestic form, that very uncomfortable domestic form, because now they're going to be heading into the Champions League, where again the schedule gets very, very demanding, and with trips to the defending champions Pyramids and to RS Berkane, it's going to be a pretty bumpy ride if they don't get going. If they make awkward starts to the campaign, it's really only going to get very, very bumpy from there on in for the side from Nigeria. And then you have Power Dynamos from Zambia, who qualified for the CAF Champions League by pulling off a stunning upset, knocking out ASEC Abidjan on penalties by 5-4 after a 1-1 draw. They have made a strong start to the FAS Super League, the Zambian top flight. They are currently 3 points off the top in third place, and it's very, very eager that we have a team from Zambia in the group stages of the CAF Champions League. I mean, gone are the days of Zesco United and their semi-final run in 2016. They're a team again that will be pretty inexperienced in CAF club competition. I think this is their first meaningful appearance in the CAF Champions League at this part of the competition, so it's going to be very, very difficult for them, knowing that they're going to be playing against a lot more experienced sides that are going to be a lot more about them and who've played CAF club competitions, whether it be Champions League and Confederations Cup before. So they're really going to need to bank on that hometown crowd in Kitwe. I don't know if they're going to be playing their games in Kitwe, but they're going to be banking on them to at least make some impact in the Champions League. They're definitely going to have their wits about them. They're going to have their wits about them if they have any hope of progressing out of this group. So how do I feel this? How do I see this group ending? I definitely think that it will be I definitely think this won't really matter, but to be totally accurate, I think that maybe it will be level between Power Dynamos and Rivers United. They'll probably be level on points, but sadly they'll be on the wrong side of the line, as I see both RS Berkane and Pyramids going through. But I actually see Pyramids winning the group. Probably will be a draw in Morocco, but then I'll see Pyramids winning the home game in Egypt between the two. But both of them will already have, but I see both of them qualifying together and having both convincingly beaten Power Dynamos and Rivers United home and away. So my official prediction would be RS Berkane finishing first. Pyramids finishing first, RS Berkane finishing second, Rivers United and Power Dynamos, I'll probably give it to Rivers United finishing third and Power Dynamos finishing bottom. Group B is what many are calling the group of death, and it features record champions Al Ahly, FAR Rabat of Morocco, JS Kabylie of Algeria, and Young Africans of Tanzania. when you are the most titled club on the African continent, the biggest and arguably the best club in the continent, life is not going to be normal for Al Ahly, and it kind of rarely is. I mean, they were part of the 4 that went to America for the Club World Championship, and of course, like all 4 Africans, were on the first flight home, and things haven't really been the same since coming back from the USA. They've made a very sluggish start to the Egyptian Premier League and have even let go of their coach, Jose Rivero. Yes, the ex-Orlando Pirates coach has let go hired a new coach, the former coach of Augsburg in the Bundesliga, and he has sort of steadied the ship at Al Ahly. He has been able to get the team playing decently, and trying to get them to climb the table. In fact, they have climbed the table. They're now second in the Egyptian Prem after that very slow start. They will be having problems in terms of the squad, and even in terms of injury. Imam Ashur, who was one of the stars of their campaign last year, suffered a really bad long-term injury, and it kind of means he will not only miss a large chunk of the group stage, but will probably even miss the Africa Cup of Nations coming up for Egypt, and even the Arab Cup that's coming up. So Al Ahly already will have some problems there, but they seem to be improving. They seem to be going back on the right path, and seem to be getting that very, very difficult start behind them, and thankfully they'll need to soon, considering that they have this intense, difficult group in the Champions League. And we all know Al Ahly's thrive in the CAF Champions League, especially in the latter parts of the competition, but you really feel in this group they're gonna have to hit the ground running, and hit the ground running quick. It'll be a big litmus test to see how far this Al Ahly team have come, especially with their new signing Zizou, who they got from the team across the road, Zamalek. It'll be very interesting and very, very challenging to see how this team has sort of been able to ride that storm, and how steady they've been after the very, very difficult start and the difficult planning of the season, a lack of preseason, having been in America, not really a transfer window, and not really a chance to sort of really start the season properly. How far has this Al Ahly team come out from the darkness? How far have they come, and how much can we expect this Al Ahly team to be to have come far in this part of the campaign? Are they good enough to challenge for a CAF Champions League title? Are they very much a team on the rise again? Are they a team that have refreshed themselves badly, like they needed to from last season, where they surprisingly, well, they won the league, but let's just say they're the champions for now. If you know, you know. They're the champions for now. So it'll be very interesting to see how far this Al Ahly team has come. FAR Rabat, of course, returned to the CAF Champions League. They were beaten quarterfinalists last time around, and they've made a pretty solid start. They're currently second in the Moroccan top flight, the Botola Pro. They are unbeaten, though, in the league. They're unbeaten, and they've made a pretty solid start under Alexandre Santos. They've been comfortable in top of the table, made a very solid start in the league, and they'll be hoping to take that form into the CAF Champions League, where, again, just like last year, where they were dealt a pretty challenging draw, they'll have to come around again this time. They have kept some of the guys from last season, but again, they've also had to change and been able to get new guys in, so it's going to be very, very difficult with that change. But the one thing that they will have going for them, and it's not really going to be much, but they'll be able to play in front of a crowd again. I mean, remember, they played at a very small, condensed stadiums. I mean, they're building stadiums for the Africa Cup of Nations now, but in the capital of Rabat, they'll have so many stadiums, you won't know where they'll be playing next. But they will be thankfully playing in front of their crowd again, or playing in front of a larger crowd crowd again in the home games in the African Champions League. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how different they will be, how they will tackle sort of this campaign. And they will definitely be taking positives from last season, the fact that they came through a very difficult group that featured their rivals Raja Casablanca and Mamelodi Sundowns. Knowing that they're in this kind of group again, they'll definitely be backing themselves to progress, having had the confidence and sort of the experience of last year coming through a very similar group in the CAF Champions League. Journée Sportive du Kabylie, or JS Kabylie as more commonly known, the most successful and arguably the most famous name in Algerian club football. They returned to the CAF Champions League after a year or 2 years away, and we all remember how strange their participation was last year. Though they made it to the last 8 of the CAF Champions League, which was a bit of a miracle, they also badly struggled in Ligue 1 Algerienne. Struggled so much so that they were even facing relegation and were for large parts of the season near the dangerous bottom half of the table, even on the wrong side of the line. They seem to have cleaned up their act and have avoided they've beaten the drop, and now they return to the CAF Champions League. They though still are having a very shaky start to Ligue 1 Algerienne. They're currently 8th in the table, but again they've got games in hand as they've had this CAF Champions League qualifying campaign. They are though a team, as you know, they come from the Kabylie region, which is a very, very strong cultural region. They are very heavily backed. They're a team that have a lot of stiff support. They're a team that also has a lot of stiff economic support as well. And they're currently coached by Joseph Zimbauer, who's done absolute miracles with the club. I mean, he was the one who wrestled the Algerian title back from the clutches of CR Belouizdad, and he has done fantastic work at the club as the German who formerly coached Orlando Pirates. So you definitely expect him, and in this hyper competitive Algerian top flight, you'll definitely expect him and that club to make a lot of impact. Also, they've got a very nice flashy home ground in Kabylie that will be, it even hosted a few Algerian national team games, and it's a very, very nice stadium. It's going to be very, very hostile. It's going to be very, very yellow, and they'll definitely be passionately backing the Canaries to have another decent run in the CAF Champions League. Of course, it's very early whether they'll juggle domestic form with the Champions League. That'll definitely be something that will be a big concern. But I feel also as well, as much as it is going to be a massive concern, I also feel that the juggling act won't be as difficult this time. I mean, remember last time they were here, they essentially had to juggle badly because essentially they were facing relegation. Now they're in mid-table with games in hand. It can get better, and definitely before things get any worse, they'll probably will want to have a crack at this CAF Champions League qualifier, this CAF Champions League group stage. So definitely they'll be backing themselves, JS Kabylie, to really stick it. It's not going to be easy, but they definitely will be very well supported financially. They are very well supported financially, very well supported in terms of fans, and they'll definitely be backing themselves to make an impact in this CAF Champions League group. The final team in this group is young Africans. They've become tournament regulars, and last season was a big disappointment for Yanga. Was the Champions League campaign. I mean, from making the quarterfinals in 2023 to getting grouped in 2024 inexplicably by MC Alger. They though are top and unbeaten in the Tanzanian top flight, the Tanzanian league, but the problem is there's only 4 games deep, so they don't really have a lot of football on them. They have though made a pretty strong start by winning the Supa Cup in Tanzania, beating their old enemies Simba in the final, so they'll definitely be on fine form. And having come through the CAF Champions League qualifying routes, they'll definitely be in fine fiddle, and they're a team that has definitely started pretty well, especially with the recent coaching change. They definitely will be starting well enough in the current campaign, in the CAF Champions League campaign. Also, they'll be backing on their phenomenal home crowd, you know, the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium, which is an infamous place to visit, and they'll definitely feel that they'll have to improve, especially that that home form in the CAF Champions League, which would really hamstrung them last year. The likes of losing at home to Al Hilal and not beating Maloudia Club last year, they'll definitely be hamstrung by that home form, and they'll definitely be hoping to arrest that and thus qualify for the quarterfinals. How this group is going to go, I feel it's incredibly tight to tell. This is a very incredibly tight group. I definitely feel Al Ahly will do enough to progress. They always seem to, and I don't think the fall-off will be that bad for them to have a disastrous CAF Champions League campaign. I don't think the fall-off will be that deep. Second place is going to be so... I want to pick FAR Rabat, but I also feel that they'll be up against a younger team that will be hungry, experienced enough, and definitely will be having fire in their belly from last year's disappointment. Excuse the weird noise. And then they'll be up against I feel that Jess Kabile, I feel they're not going to have enough. They're largely an inexperienced side. Yes, a very well-backed side, but I feel the inexperience of Champions League and the step up to Champions League will be a little bit too steep for them. So I feel that I'm not going to say will finish bottom, but they'll definitely not qualify. So I feel Al Ahly will go through, maybe even win the group. I'll just say they'll win the group for a placeholder. Who joins them in second place? I will have to say, and this is going to be a very unpopular one, I'm probably going to get this one wrong. I probably think Yanga. Maybe Yanga. I mean, I feel probably at home, Yanga will probably get results at home, and they'll definitely get a result against FAR Rabat at home, which we feel will be good enough for them to see them progress ahead of the Royal side. Again, this is very, very tight, and I will most likely get this one wrong because I feel that FAR Rabat, again with the experience of having played in this competition last year, but I feel they'll be up against a team that, again, very passionate, very hungry, and I feel will get the jump on it. But the matches between those two are going to be critical to see who progresses to the next round of the CAF Champions League. Those two games are going to be practically eliminators, but I feel Yanga will do enough just to get over the line. Group C sees Mamelodi Sundowns, Al Hilal, Sant Eloi Lupopo, group stage debutant, and Maloudia Club de Algiers from Algeria. It hasn't been all rosy in the city of the Jacaranda for the Brazilians. I mean, of course, despite winning an 8th straight league title, there was, of course, that massive disappointment of losing last year's CAF Champions League final. I mean, Sundowns, you really had gotten over the neuroses and the bottle job allegations. Sadly bottled it, and they bottled the final they should never have lost, and that was a huge scar for them. They went off, of course, to the World Championship in America, and although put on a pretty strong showing, sadly didn't have the quality and wherewithal to get past Borussia Dortmund or Fluminense, which saw them get grouped. They then didn't have much of a preseason, and they've come back to South Africa and they've looked very, very sluggish. I mean, of course, they're currently top of the PSL, but the Betway Premiership, I beg your pardon, but Sundowns just do not look, they look leggy, they look very, very tired. They're definitely not playing the expansive shoeshine and piano football that everyone has sort of learned to fall in love with the Brazilians over the years, and they've played the style of football that seems at times pretty lethargic. They look pretty tired and definitely look like they're running low on gas after the very, very difficult end to last season, and of course the lack of sort of downtime from last season to this season, especially under Miguel Cardoso. As much as they've been doing well in the league, it's been the cup competitions where Sundowns have shown their vulnerability. They were eliminated in the League Cup in the first round on penalties, and sadly again failed to win the top 8 cup. So already there's been a bit of pressure on Miguel Cardoso, and especially on some people on the Sundowns hierarchy. There's already been a bit of negative negative fan outlook, and the only way you can quell that negativity is with a strong group stage run in the CAF Champions League. Sundowns, who stereotypically have been a good side in the group stage of Champions League, last year broke that mold and didn't have a strong group stage and never really looked comfortable in all 6 of their games, but did just about enough to progress to the knockout stage of Champions League and of course have that run to the final. They have lost the player of the season, Lucas Ribeiro Costa. He's gone off to second division in Spain. His replacement, though, has made an immediate impact in this competition. Santos from Portugal, he scored home and away in the playoff trouncing of Nigerian champions Remo Stars, and it'll be very interesting to see how he takes to African football, how he takes to the real intensity of the CAF Champions League. It'll be very, very interesting to see. For Al Hilal, yet again, with the really terrible situation happening in Sudan, again, Al Hilal will be forced to play their games outside of Sudan. Although I read several reports that apparently the Sudanese Premier League is back up again, sadly, Al Hilal will have to be away from home. Instead, this time they'll be playing their games not in Mauritania, and they will not be playing in Liga Mauritania. Instead, they'll be playing in Rwanda, and instead they'll be playing in the Rwandan Premier League, and they'll be playing their home games in Rwanda, which will be very, very interesting. Again, not much of a distance for fans to travel, especially from fans of Al Hilal, but again, with the lack of stability and the lack of surely staying put in one country will definitely be very, very taxing on the team. Also, Florent Ibenge has left the club, so that's already been a bit of a double whammy blow for the team from Sudan. So really you have to feel for Al Hilal that this season, as much as they made it to the knockout stage last year, it's going to be a lot tougher this year, and definitely the lack of stability and the lack of sadly stable home, or the lack of sort of surety, it's going to make the club restless, it's going to make the players restless, and it's really going to start affecting their performances on the pitch. And it's going to be very, very interesting if Al Hilal miraculously can pull it off again by qualifying for the knockout stage out of this group in the CAF Champions League. It'll be very, very interesting, but they'll definitely be having it all against them, just like they did last year. We have a debutant in the CAF Champions League group stage, FC Saint-Éloi Lupopo of the DR Congo. If you are a fan of my generation, giving away my age here, you'll have known of this name, Saint-Éloi Lupopo, from the early 2000s, especially if you're a South African. But of this new generation and new set of fans, not many of them would have known who they were until that playoff tie against Orlando Pirates, last year's beaten semi-finalists. And what a tie it was. From winning the home leg 3-0 down with 3-0, they then traveled to South Africa and proceeded to throw that 3-0 lead away in a very emotion-charged 90 minutes in Orlando Stadium, and a tie that went all the way to penalties, which they won. They won the penalty shootout in sudden death to qualify for this part of the CAF Champions League for the very first time. And what has made it even better is that they've made a very, very strong start to the Linafoot campaign, having beaten their more illustrious and more famous neighbors and rivals, TP Mazembe. Yes, they're from Lubumbashi. They have made a very strong start to the campaign and will definitely be a team to be reckoned with. Having knocked out Orlando Pirates, they would have definitely put a lot of people on notice. They would have definitely put a lot of teams on notice. The Railway Men will definitely be a team that, although they'll be debutants, and although they have played in Africa before very recently, the Champions League, of course, is a very steep sort of jump from the Confederations Cup. A lot of teams will definitely be putting them on notice. A lot of teams will definitely be looking out for them, and definitely will not be taking them for granted as most are. So definitely I feel they'll be the massive wild card in this group. Mouloudia Club Algiers returned to the CAF Champions League, last year's unbeaten quarterfinalists, and they've got a new man in charge, a very famous man in charge. Rulani Mukwena, formerly of Mamelodi Sundowns, Orlando Pirates, and Wydad Casablanca, has taken charge, and he has made a fantastic start to life in Algiers. They're unbeaten. They're currently top of Liga, they're about the top of Liga in Algerian, and have made a very strong start to the campaign. They look like a team that's very, very hungry, very, very disciplined, and they look like a team that definitely can make a lot of challenges. And those games against Sundowns are going to be incredibly emotional. I mean, Rulani cut his teeth at Mamelodi Sundowns that has taken very well to North African football, where many I thought he wasn't going to succeed, especially during his time at Wydad Casablanca. He's been thrown to the deep end with the Sharks and is swimming quite nicely. Near the top of the table, undefeated, and arguably playing like they are the best team in Algeria. MC Alger are definitely a side that's going to be reckoned with, and I definitely feel, having of course last season made it to the quarterfinals, will be confident that they'll make it again. Now, how do I feel this group will pan out? I feel, despite being a group wild card, I feel Saint-Éloi Lupopo will finish bottom, or will get grouped. They will be a wild card, especially at home, but I feel that the experience of the top sides or the other sides in the group, they'll be outmatched, and I feel they're not going to be able to progress to the latter part of the CAF Champions League. Now, I definitely feel Mamelodi Sundowns will progress. I feel they'll have the wherewithal, they'll have the quality and the experience to help even win this group. So I feel Sundowns, if they can play well enough, if they can play economically enough, if they can be clinical enough, will win this group and progress. It'll be down to Al Hilal and MC Alger, and I can't help but look past Mamelodi Club to finish second and ahead of Al Hilal. I feel that Mamelodi Club will be a lot more not even experienced, but I feel that the instability at Al Hilal, the lack of surety and the lack of a home to come home to, I feel the restlessness will definitely play into Mamelodi Club's hands, and I definitely feel Mamelodi Club will get the results at home and maybe even pinch the odd point away, and definitely take it beyond Al Hilal. And definitely that's how I see this group panning out. Mamelodi Sundowns finishing top, Mamelodi Club finishing second, Al Hilal third, and sadly Saint-Éloi Lupopo last. And we close off with Group D, which features Petro de Luanda of Angola, Espérance Sportive de Tunisie of Tunisia, Simba Sports Club of Tanzania, and Stade Malien du Bamako of Mali. Petro de Luanda returned to the group stage after being on the wrong end of a very, very heartbreaking upset to Maniema Union of the DR Congo. They return, having of course won last year's Girobola, the Angolan top flight, and returned with a new coach. Fran Artiga of Spain is now their man in charge, a former Barcelona youth coach. They are, though, having a pretty awkward start to the Girobola campaign. They're currently fourth, but again have a game in hand, and recently lost the big derby to Primeiro de Agosto, so before we broke for international. So of course it's going to be a pretty awkward time and a pretty uncomfortable time for the Girobola winners. But for Petro, they're going to be very, very interesting. They're going to be an interesting side that to follow. They're going to be a team with a lot of talent, a team that with a lot of impact, and a team that have in the past sprung a lot of surprises in the CAF Champions League and have risen to prominence to becoming one of the sort of sleeper teams in African football. But having been out for a year, are they still going to have that sort of wherewithal? Are they still going to have that, it factor with them that they had in the past? It's going to be very easy. It's going to be very, very, I'm not going to say easy, but it's going to be very, very interesting to tell for the team from Angola, if they're the flag bearers of Angola, if they're going to make a significant impact in this African Champions League campaign. It's been an awkward start for Le Sangeo. I mean, yeah, I've been saying that quite a lot. It's been an awkward start for Le Sangeo Espérance de Tunis. They were sadly drew the recent Tunis derby against Club Africain, and also have a very awkward start and are starting to fall behind the likes of Etoile du Sahel and Club Africain in the Ligue 1 Tunisienne. They although have kept Manuel Kanzari and are suffering a lot of sort of the problems that some teams that went away to the Club World Cup are suffering, where they haven't. And they, of course, went to the Club World Cup. They, of course, went out in the groups, as all the 4 African teams did. And you can tell that they're sort of behind it in terms of they're very, very leggy. They're very much struggling to replace some of the guys that left the club during the off-season. And you can tell that the Esperance fans will definitely be heaping pressure, definitely have heaped pressure on Maher Kanzani. They've definitely heaped pressure on him. But definitely there's been a sort of anti-movement against the Esperance coach, especially with the awkward start of the season and sort of the tailing of the form. And at times they will definitely struggle against teams that play football. They'll struggle against teams that sort of will play the ball around them, teams that will be good enough, good ball playing teams. They'll struggle against those teams. And in this Champions League, of course, they'll be one of the sort of more important teams. They'll be sort of one of the more teams that people will be looking out for. But it'll be definitely very interesting to see how they tackle this campaign and how, despite struggling at home, they'll be going away to Africa and they'll be going away playing against teams that are very, very compact, teams that know how to play the ball when they have to. And it'll be very interesting to see if Esperance will be able to handle that kind of pressure. And I definitely feel they cannot afford a slow start to the group stage. They cannot afford a slow start to the group, or definitely the pressure will be ramped all the way up and Esperance will have to let Kanzari go, which is a decision they probably won't want to make. I mean, it'll be very interesting where Esperance stand in the table of this group, especially before we break for the Africa Cup of Nations. But I feel that Esperance will have to make a very, very strong start to the group stage of the Champions League if they have any hope of qualifying or going further. Simba return to the CAF Champions League, having missed out last year, but their year away from the Champions League was still pretty productive. I mean, they made the final of the CAF Confederations Cup where they lost out to RS Berkane, and they were a team that definitely were starting to reach their prominence, or were starting to reach their prime in African football. They're a team that always sort of had been growing, and yearly it felt like it was their hour. But again, against RS Berkane, Simba showed that their big game potential sadly just wasn't there. They were comfortably beaten by the Moroccan side. And it's been all upheaval on the red side of Dar es Salaam. Their longtime coach, Fatlou David, has left the club. He's gone to coach Raja Casablanca. They have a replacement now, but again, they'll be very, very weird start for them. I mean, they are currently near the top parts of the Tanzanian league where they feel they should be. But having lost someone like Fatlou David, someone who has been at the club for quite a while, someone who was in their close, someone in their biggest, and someone who was in their hours, their major hours, some of their finest hours at Simba, to have them no longer in charge is very, very difficult. So losing him would be very, very rough. But seeing that they've made a very strong start to the domestic campaign, and having seen, of course, having now gone through to the group stage of Champions League where they feel they should be, it looks like they're going okay. But again, of course, the Champions League will have a very, very steep uptake in quality, and it will be very, very interesting to see where they compete, especially against the likes of an Esperance, especially against the likes of a Petro de Luanda. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where Simba match up and how far this team has come under the new management and the new staff that's come into the club. For the second year in a row, a team from Mali will be in the Champions League, and now it's the other big side. The other big Malian team is in the competition. Last year we had Joliba, this year we have Stade Malien, and it will be the first time in 15 years. Last but not least, we have another team from Mali in the group stage, of the CAF Champions League, and they'll actually be making their debut, and that's despite being one of the most famous names or probably the famous name in Malian football. Stade Malien de Bamako will be making their debut this this part of the CAF Champions League, of course they've played in African competition before and do have some parts of an African reputation. I mean, they were finalists in the Confederations Cup in 2012 and have been there or thereabout, but have never played in the group stage of Champions League until now. Very, very interesting club from Mali. I mean, they will have seen their rivals Joliba make it into the group stage of Champions League, so of course they'll be very much inspired. But again, it's going to be a very, very difficult task for this team from Mali. They'll be up against teams that will be very, very more experienced. They'll be very much the outlier, and there will be very much very much outmatched by those in charge. They'll be very much outmatched by those in charge, and definitely by those who will have more experience. They do have a coach, Mamadou Kane. He is the man in charge. He's been in charge since January 2024, which means he would have been in charge for a whole year, and that means he surely has enough time for his players. He has enough time to instill a style of play, and has definitely done well enough, especially having won the Malian top flight. So he is definitely a championship winning coach. I feel though they'll be very much the underdog in this group, and it's going to be a miracle for them to progress, but they'll definitely be hoping to make their home very, very difficult. And knowing that they played in the Confederations Cup last year, they will have some degree of playing in Africa, but as I said earlier, that steep jump from Confederations Cup to Champions League will be very, very difficult for them, and I feel that it will be a huge challenge. My prediction for the group, I definitely see Stade Malien finishing bottom. I feel that they will be heavily outmatched by everyone else in the group. The team, I definitely see progressing. I feel Esperance will probably progress into the knockout stage. I see them finishing probably top of the group. I mean, we all know Esperance. As much as they are a troubled team, and as much as they're not the most entertaining team, they get things done in the Champions League. That's probably been the motto of Esperance, is just get it done, you know. 1-0 to the Song AO, that's all they ever need. So I feel for Esperance, they will get the job done despite a lot of the problems at home. It'll be a huge surprise if they somehow don't make it through. And then I feel between Petro de Luanda and Simba, I feel Simba will outmatch Petro. I feel that they will do enough. I feel that Simba will definitely get the more important results, or will definitely get the results at home, and will definitely get the more important results over Petro de Luanda. And I definitely feel that Simba will have the ability to outmatch the team from Angola, and I definitely feel they'll get second place. They'll definitely get second place behind Esperance. I feel they're not good enough to top the group, but they'll definitely be good enough to get second place. And I feel sadly for Petro and Stade Malien, the African adventure will end here. And that's it. That is my CAF Champions League preview and prediction. That is who I think will progress and who will not progress to the quarterfinals. Tell me, who are you going to be supporting in the group stage? What are your predictions? Who do you think will be going through? And what else do you think about this video? And what other opinions and what other thoughts do you have on this year's CAF Champions League? Of course, if you guys are liking the content, like I said earlier, if you watched all the way to the very end, like I say, you're an absolute warrior. And if you guys are liking the content, don't forget to like, to share, and subscribe, and share this with the rest of your followers of African football. But until then, it's been your boy, the Football Otaku, and never forget, real football always wins. Check you on the flip side. Deuces. Bye bye.